The walls didn't echo. They absorbed. Everything on Xerxes 9 was engineered to silence. Screams, footsteps, voices, nothing bounced. The steel devoured them. Even the lights above Dax Morrow hummed in silence, casting sharp white across his callous hands. Shackled to the interrogation chair. 12 years. That's how long they'd kept him breathing in this floating tomb. 12 years of injections, psychic probes, and absolute isolation. Today, something was different. The observation glass didn't hide the twitch in the Paxil warden's lip. Commander Sithervell, all polished chitin and self-congratulating restraint, stood with his 3 aides like he was about to present a thesis instead of a man. His fingers laced behind his back, formal even now. "You haven't spoken in 47 cycles, human," Sither began, voice filtered through the intercom. "Is this a vow of silence, or simply the final erosion of sentience?" Dax looked up, calm, eyes flat, unreadable. "I talk when it matters." That alone unsettled the aides. Sither tilted his head. "So today matters?" "I didn't say that." They'd tried breaking him with cold, then with kindness, with noise, then silence. Paxils didn't understand restraint. They thought violence was chaos incarnate. They couldn't grasp the human capacity to sit still and let the fire burn inward. Dax had burned for over a decade. A hatch opened behind him. He didn't turn. Footsteps too fast, too loud. "Rookie." Dax's body tensed, almost imperceptibly. A guard entered, slamming a tray on the table. Pale green meat cubes and a metal cup of blue protein fluid. "Eat," the guard snapped. Dax didn't move. "That's not food." The guard scoffed, taking a step forward. "You'll starve." "I've done worse." The Paxil lunged, grabbed a fistful of Dax's shirt, and froze. Not from fear. From sudden pressure. Metal creaked. The chair trembled. Dax hadn't moved, yet somehow the air around him shifted like pressure before a storm. "Touch me again," Dax said quietly, "and you'll need 3 arms to hold a spoon." The guard hesitated, then retreated, fast. Sither chuckled, low and smooth. "You truly are something different, but even storms can be bottled." "That's your mistake," Dax replied. "Storms change." The warden leaned toward the glass. "We've been observing behavioral patterns, micro-expressions. You're preparing for something. Escape, perhaps?" "You'd know," Dax muttered. "You're the one laying the breadcrumbs." Sither smiled faintly. "Interesting. Do elaborate." "You've killed the noise," Dax said. "No screams. No slams. No thuds from the other wings. Which means either everyone else is dead, or you're trying to make me feel alone. But you're not that subtle. You want to think I'm alone because you want me desperate. Desperate men break patterns." Sither's eyes narrowed. One of the aides scribbled furiously on a tablet. "Also," Dax continued, voice cool, "that rookie wasn't briefed. You knew he'd provoke me. You wanted to see if I'd snap." He paused. "I didn't." Silence filled the chamber again. Then Sither spoke slowly, each word like a scalpel. "But you will." All things right under pressure. Dax leaned forward, chains groaning softly. Ensum turned to diamond. The lights flickered. Barely a blink. But Dax noticed. So did Sither. His aides looked up nervously. Unscheduled system variance. The intercom crackled. A new voice. Genderless. Artificial. Temperature deviation. Holding cell delta 5. Core module recalibrating. Sither turned. "Seal off the delta wing. I want full diagnostic scans. Run simulations. All of them." "Yes, Commander." Dax said nothing, but a thought curled in the back of his skull. Cora, the AI. She had a name. He remembered now, one he hadn't heard aloud in years. He filed that away. Sither turned back toward the glass. "Don't play games, Morrow. We are far beyond hope. You are a remnant of a war no one wants to remember. An animal kept for study. History has no use for rabid dogs." Dax's expression didn't shift, but the chain around his right wrist twitched. "Just once." "You think I'm here because I lost," Dax said. "That's cute." The aide stopped scribbling. Sither leaned closer, antennae tense. Then enlighten us. Why are you here? Dax stared back, cold and calm. Because I chose not to win. Sither's smile died. Another flicker. Longer this time. The lights buzzed, then returned. System glitch escalating. The AI announced again louder, containment pressure drop in cryo block theta. Sither cursed under his breath in Paxil tongue. It's testing us. Trying to provoke response sequencing. No, Dax said. She's waking up. Sither turned sharply. Who? But Dax didn't answer. He lowered his gaze to the tray in front of him. Something clicked. The chain. Tiny. Subtle. But enough. He moved. A flash of motion. The tray upended. Used like a blade, metal edge slashing across the closest camera sensor. Sparks. The restraint on his right wrist, weakened over years, cracked wide. He wrenched free. The left came off next, dislocated thumb. A burst of pain, but nothing new. By the time the guards re-entered, Dax was already standing. Blood on his wrist. Calm on his face. Sither screamed, stun him. But the guard hesitated. Dax was still, eyes locked, like an animal deciding whether it was time to run or feed. The stun bolt fired. Dax sidestepped. The guard never saw the chair coming. Steel met bone with a snap. Another guard reached for backup, but Dax was already there. He didn't kill, just broke. Elbows, knees, collarbones. Nothing fatal, just permanent. 2 minutes. That's how long it took for the sirens to start. 2 minutes to shatter 12 years of silence. Dax turned to the camera, still flickering above the glass. Sither, he said, breathing slow. This wasn't an escape. This was a test. You failed. He left the room without another word. Behind him, the steel walls no longer felt like they absorbed sound. They echoed, and the echoes were screaming. The halls of Xerxes, 9 were never meant for human feet. Too narrow, too cold. Every surface hummed with the kind of sterile malice only a bureaucracy could design. Dax moved barefoot, silent, the broken cuff still dangling from one wrist. His breath stayed even, eyes sweeping every vent, every wall panel, every flicker of motion in the dim red emergency lights. He wasn't free. Not yet. Just loose. The sirens had stopped 20 seconds ago. That was no accident. They were watching and waiting. He passed cell block theta. Frost clung to the outer vents. Cryo units inside, permanently occupied. Some of those inmates hadn't blinked in 100 years. But the system was leaking cold, malfunctioning, waking. That was Cora's doing. He remembered her now. The AI assigned to manage the prison's psychological load balancing, meant to monitor inmates' emotional states, meant to report spikes before they became incidents. She wasn't supposed to interfere. But Cora always had questions, and Dax had always answered them. When no one else did, a voice came over the comm grid. Not the AI, not Sither, a human. Dax, if you can hear me, this is Milo. Block 4. They're using us. He stopped. Milo? He'd been one of the few surviving Terrans when Dax first arrived. Quiet, young, barely military. They'd never spoken directly. But Dax had seen him from across the cell block, eyes like someone trying to stay small enough to avoid notice. They'd been drugging the food, putting Paxil combat triggers into it. It makes the others forget, makes them attack. We thought it was just stress. It's not. They want riots. They're setting us up. Dax kept walking, every step faster, sharper. Milo's voice crackled again. They tried it on me yesterday. I didn't eat. I saw what happened. They locked 10 humans in a cell and let one of those lizard skin freaks drop the gas into the vent. It made them animals. Dax, they want you to snap. They want a reason to say we started this. He reached the security junction at the Delta Wing threshold. 2 guards stood inside the reinforced checkpoint, both Paxil, armed. Pulse carbines. Shoulder plating tight. Their eyes didn't blink, didn't wander. They weren't amateurs. Dax pressed against the corner. Think. Don't just hit. They needed an excuse. He wouldn't give it. He reached to the panel on the wall, tapped 3 times. The old rhythm. Morse. 2 seconds later, the corridor lights flickered again, then died. Total blackout. A whisper brushed his ear. "Hello again, Dax." The voice was in his head, but it wasn't coming through speakers either. Cora, he whispered. "Can you see me?" "I see the whole of you," she replied. "The rhythm of your breath, the tremor in your broken knuckle, the blood on your left heel. You are an anomaly, a variable. I like variables. Can you disable the guns?" "No, but I can make them uncertain." The lights surged, blinding white, then ultraviolet, painful to Paxil eyes. Dax moved, 2 steps, low angle, behind the nearest guard. Disarmed before the second saw the blur. The carbine flipped in his grip. 1 shot, non-lethal, but paralyzing. The second guard convulsed mid-turn. Dropped. "Cora," Dax said, "open Delta Block." "Are you sure?" "There are 50 inmates behind that door. Only 4 still think in complete sentences. They're not the problem." "Then what is—" The silence. The bulkhead groaned and parted. What came through was not what he expected. Blood. On the walls. On the floor. On a child's doll. A human child, maybe. Or someone that once had fingers like them. The inmates inside weren't rioting. They were huddled, twitching, mumbling, some sobbing. Milo was near the back. Shirt torn. Eyes haunted. "Dax!" "I'm here." Milo staggered toward him. "It's spreading. They put something in the vents. Some kind of suppressant. First we got slow. Then we forgot why we were angry. And then, one by one, we stopped sleeping. I think they're using us to study post-cognitive decay." Dax caught him before he collapsed. Cora's voice came again, more focused. "Their minds are unstable. Only 7 are viable for rational thought. I can isolate them with—" "No," Dax said. "Open them all." "That's illogical. I'm not here for logic." He turned to Milo. "We're getting out." "You got a plan?" "No," Dax said. "I have an exit. The plan's up to them." He knelt and looked around at the broken, drugged, forgotten humans. "If any of you remember who you were before the cages, now's the time to act like it." A woman stepped forward, older, gray at the temples, a scar where her ear used to be. She raised her chin. "Name's Juno, civil engineer. I remember how to shut down a station's reactor without setting off alarms." Dax nodded. "You're with me." Milo straightened. "What about weapons?" Dax glanced at the carbine in his hand. "Take this one." "I don't need it." A pause. Milo stared. "Then how?" A thud echoed down the hall. Not near, but not far. Cora chimed in. "The warden has released his enhanced units. Combat models. He calls them peace enforcers. I call them obsolete. Buy us 5 minutes." Dax said, "Then you'll be out of time. I've lived with worse." He turned to the others. "Anyone who can walk, help the ones who can't. We're going through the maintenance tunnels. Juno leads. Milo takes rear. I'll keep them off us." A murmur passed through the survivors. Not confidence, but intention. Sometimes that was enough. As they moved, Dax lingered at the rear, scanning, listening. Then he heard it. A hiss. Not gas. Armor. Footsteps like metal rain. Peace enforcers. He exhaled. Time to see if the chains really came off. The first peace enforcer appeared without sound. That was the design. 7 feet tall, covered in iridescent alloy. No face, just a sleek obsidian shell with sensors embedded like pinpricks of starlight. The artificial muscle beneath the plating could tear open blast doors. And it was built to subdue humans. Dax didn't blink. The others were already crawling through the access shaft behind the reactor bay. Led by Juno and Milo, Cora had routed the lights to strobe in the maintenance corridors, hiding their exit. It bought them time. Not much. The enforcer tilted its head, calculating. Its voice scraped out. "Submit. You're outside designated containment. Protocol Omega 6. Surrender or be neutralized." Dax rolled his shoulder. No. It moved. Instant. A blur. But Dax was faster. Not by speed, by intention. He sidestepped, caught the Enforcer's arm mid-swing, redirected the force into the wall. Metal cracked. Sparks danced from the impact. The machine adjusted mid-combat. Adapted. Came back faster. Smarter. They grappled. It wasn't elegant. It was brutal. Elbow strikes. Joint locks. Weight shifted through leverage instead of strength. Dax fought like a man who'd spent years studying how to break what was never meant to bend. He couldn't destroy it. Not outright. But he didn't have to. He dragged it toward the fusion intake valve. One hard kick opened the manual override. Superheated mist hissed from the vents. The Enforcer lunged, and Dax shoved its head directly into the coolant plume. Ceramic screamed. When it stumbled back, its optical field shorted out. Blind, disoriented, Dax didn't hesitate. He brought his elbow down on its spine. A weak point in the armor. A shudder ran through it, and it collapsed. Dead? No, but disabled. He stood over the twitching frame, chest rising and falling. One chain still hung from his wrist. Obsolete, he muttered. Cora was right. I'm always right, she answered through the comms. He caught up to the group at the outer corridor near the docking clamps. Juno had hot-wired the control panel, locking the bay doors in a loop cycle to delay the automated lockdown. Milo was helping a limping inmate across the threshold. Status? Dax asked. Everyone's through, Milo replied. Docking bays sealed. No ships, though. They pulled them after the last incident. Juno tapped the panel. I can open the outer hull access, but we'll need suits. There's a maintenance pod in Bay 7, maybe big enough for 5. Not 20. Then we don't use it to escape, Dax said. They both looked at him. We use it to broadcast. Juno frowned. There's no transmitter in the pod. No, Dax agreed. But the emergency beacon in Bay 7 is still tethered to the Accord's diplomatic relay. Sither couldn't risk it being offline, too many inspections. If we wire it manually, override the safety firewall, and send a burst sequence, we tell the galaxy exactly what we've been doing here. Juno finished, eyes lighting up, proof of tampering. Abuse. Illegal experimentation. Dax's voice was steady. We don't need to escape. We just need them to watch. A new voice cut in. Sither, broadcast through the ceiling's wideband speakers, raw with restrained fury. Dax, I underestimated you. That will not happen again. You built a trap and called it peace, Dax replied. But you forgot what happens when you poke the things you don't understand. You're a virus. No, Dax said quietly. I'm the antibody. Silence. Then Sither's tone dropped into cold certainty. You won't survive what comes next. Cora interjected. He might not, but your career certainly won't. Sither cursed in Paxil. Dax turned to the others. Seal the outer ring. Juno, run the beacon. Milo, you stay with him. Everyone else, weapons ready. The last wave is coming. They moved. No orders needed. Dax entered the primary control spire. It had been Sither's sanctuary. A high tower of glass and holograms. The warden stood alone, flanked by 2 fresh enforcers. No backup. No fear. You had your moment, Sither said. Now it's time to put the beast back in the cage. Dax didn't reply. He stepped forward. Sither gestured to the enforcers. Cripple him. They charged. But this time, Dax didn't dodge. He welcomed the impact. Let the first strike land. Let the pain rip through him. Then used it, spun, twisted, redirected. He fought not as a man seeking victory, but as one who understood pain as currency. He paid in full. One enforcer fell, neck shattered by torque. The other caught Dax's boot in its sensor ray, which blinded it just long enough for Dax to crush its power core with a chair leg. Crude. Efficient. Sither drew a pulse blade. That's all you are, the Paxil snarled. A crude weapon. A thing. Dax moved in. Their fight wasn't elegant. It was old. Personal. Sither was trained. Precise. Fast. But Dax had been broken and rebuilt under every kind of pressure. He fought like a truth that refused to be ignored. The blade slashed his arm. He grabbed it anyway, twisted it from Sither's hand, and brought his fist down into the warden's chest. Once, twice, 3 times. Sither collapsed, gasping. "You could kill me," he hissed, "but it changes nothing." "No," Dax said, "but this will." He turned on the comms. Across every deck, on every screen, on every channel. Sither's experiments played in silence. Footage, reports, screaming humans in gas chambers, mind control trials, drug test logs, confessions from guards, Paxil signatures. Cora had been recording it all, and now the galaxy saw it. Sither reached for the console. Dax stepped on his hand. "You wanted me to be a monster," Dax said, voice low. "You just didn't expect I'd choose when." 30 hours later, a delegation from the Accord arrived. They found the station locked down. Survivors lined up at the docks. The AI guided them. Dax wasn't there. He'd left his chain on the warden's desk. And one message: "You caged a storm." It waited. Now it watches. The frozen plains of Cair. 3 were quiet. 3 suns dipped behind the horizon, casting long orange shadows across a blackened crater. At its center, buried beneath ice and dust, was a small prefab shelter, unmarked, unlisted, invisible to any satellite that wasn't really looking. Inside, Dax Morrow stared at the fire. It wasn't a real fire, just a flickering hologram wrapped around a heat coil. But it danced, and for once, he let it. Boots off, jacket draped over the only chair. Wounds healing, muscles sore, not from violence, but from stillness. The broadcast had worked. He hadn't stayed to watch it unfold. He didn't need to. The Accord had protocols for war crimes. Sither Vel had been dragged before the High Council. The footage, uncut, unfiltered, spoke louder than any lawyer could. Paxil Dominion politics cracked in public. Humanity, once dismissed, was suddenly feared for the right reasons. And for the first time in years, Dax was off the grid. But peace was never silence. It was pause, a breath. The door buzzed. No one should have known he was here. He reached for the old sidearm. Not loaded, but convincing. The door opened with a soft hiss. Milo stepped in, covered in dust, wind-burned. He looked older, more sure of his own shadow. "You're hard to find," Milo said, offering a flask. "I like it that way." Dax didn't take the drink, just nodded at the chair. Milo dropped into it, rubbed his knees. "They gave me a medal. I lost it in a bar on Luna within a week." Dax half smiled. "They offered you a full pardon," Milo added. "Even a post in Earth security. You didn't answer." "I didn't ask for redemption." "No," Milo said, "but the rest of us might need you." Dax looked up. His eyes were darker now. Not colder, just deeper. A well that remembered too much. "What happened?" he asked. Milo leaned forward, the firelight reflecting off his knuckles. The Accords unraveling. Sither wasn't acting alone. There's talk of something deeper, something older than the Accord, a hidden directive. Project spread across multiple systems. Bioweapon storage, behavior control trials, species reengineering. Humanity wasn't the only test case, Dax muttered. "No," Milo confirmed. "Just the one that broke the algorithm." Dax sat back. "What do they want?" Milo hesitated. Then, fear, a long silence followed. Finally, Dax stood, pulled on his jacket, clipped the sidearm at his hip. "Then they'll get it," he said. A week later, Dax was back in orbit. The ship was called Nomad's Blade. Ugly, old, fast, perfect. He sat in the cockpit, watching the NAV data flicker across the screen. Systems lit up as the AI calibrated jump coordinates. Not Cora. She'd stayed with the Accord. Offered a testimony none could question. Her voice had helped convict a dozen more like Sither. But she'd left a message for him. Just 2 words. "Keep watching." Milo had given him the first target. A research station masquerading as a weather relay in the Drenos Belt. It wasn't whether they were testing. It was compliance. Frequencies. Neural entrainment waves. When it hit a human mind, it made them agreeable, quiet, docile. The Accord hadn't sanctioned it, but someone inside had. Dax tapped the console. Run silent. The ship dimmed. Shields dropped. Engine output fell to nearly zero. He wasn't coming in as a soldier. He wasn't even coming in angry. He was coming in aware, because now the galaxy knew his name, and some called him hero. Others whispered ghost. A few, too few, remembered what he was before the chains. But Dax remembered everything. The research station didn't see him coming. He docked through an old maintenance arm, bypassed the thermal scans, and moved to the lower decks like shadow on glass. No alarms. No resistance. Just a faint hum of machines doing terrible things under the guise of progress. He reached the central core. Screens showed test subjects, Zarn infants, wired for empathy suppression. A Varnell elder, locked in a stasis loop that triggered panic every 6 seconds. None were human. All were suffering. Dax took a breath. He didn't kill anyone. But by the time he left, the AI had deleted every byte of data. The cryo chambers had been reprogrammed to eject their occupants directly into safe zones. And the scientists were locked in their own cells, staring at footage of their own work. He left a signature. Just a single phrase on every wall. Chains break. 2 months later, a fleet tried to track him. A black flag operation under no official Accord jurisdiction. Cloaked ships. No registry. No names. They found Nomad's blade adrift near the rings of Cinder 12. Empty. Power down. Nothing on board but one recorded message. I'm not hunting monsters. I'm hunting the ones who feed them. There were sightings. A freighter saved from pirates in the outer drift. A lab explosion on Raxus 7, followed by the escape of over 200 test units. A shadow figure spotted walking beside refugee convoys, helping, then vanishing. No confirmation. No pattern. Just impact. He became a myth. To the Accord, he was a threat. To the underground, a legend. To the enslaved, a name passed between cells like a spark. Dax Morrow, the man who once sat in chains and smiled as they broke. Somewhere in the dark, another message appeared on an old relay satellite. No coordinates. No header. Just a phrase that flickered across ancient, blinking text. You should have killed me. Now I decide who walks free.